Hey, sweet mama. Welcome back to another episode of Mom in Process. Thank you so much for joining me again today and spending a little bit of your very valuable time with me as I journey through motherhood and share my trials and tribulations and mindset and just all the things that I've learned, all the things that I've failed on. And we're just journeying through motherhood as moms in process together. As always, I'm your host and creator, Amy Cawthron. Again, if this is your first time joining me, welcome. I hope you find value in this podcast. If you do find value in this, I would just like to take a quick second and ask to please share it at the end of this episode. Just share it with your community, share it with your little bubble of humans that you spend time with. It would really help me help grow this community and help another sweet mama out. That's the goal behind all of this, is to just build this amazing community of like-minded, strong women who want to better their lives and raise the future generation. So again, thank you so much for joining me today. What I want to talk about today isn't necessarily like these big takeaways or 3 steps to something. It's more of me just sharing a story in a situation that I just went through this weekend and sharing my truth and my vulnerability in hopes of inspiring you or just making you think, making you pause, and maybe even just a moment that you could relate to some of the things that we have gone through, some of the things that I've gone through. But this weekend, let me just start that over by saying there is so much craziness going on in the world right now. And I tend to be, and I think a lot of other stay-at-home moms tend to really hold on to that and really feel that deeply. And I have a theory about why. And my theory is that we're alone in our own thoughts, in our own head, with tiny children who we can't talk about the craziness of the world that's going on, especially when they're really little. If you have teenagers, by all means, yes. And, there's different levels that we can talk to them about these things. But for the most part, our big questions, our heavy questions, our hard questions, our confusion, our emotions behind everything going on, we can't talk to that. We can't talk about that with our little children. And especially if you have babies, you can't talk about it at all. There's no communication. And so we're left alone in our own thoughts all day long. And so when we see things on social media as you're scrolling through, or you hear things on the news, or you catch glimpses of it on Google or whatever, I mean, you can't even pull up YouTube anymore without all of the major headlines from all of the, major news outlets. And, CNN says this, Fox News says this. So like I go first thing in the morning to turn on yoga, CNN news headlines show up on YouTube. And it's so frustrating because that's what I'm seeing 5:30 in the morning. And that's what I'm absorbing. And then we don't have an outlet to really have these discussions. I mean, we're not really talking about the war in Ukraine at the park with our children around, right? So it's just us and we're stuck in our own heads. And I am very guilty of this. And I think some of this depends on your personalities and things too. There's a lot of other factors that go into this. But for me, I tend to feel things very heavily, very deeply. I get very confused and I don't understand. And so this weekend, with the situation going on in Ukraine, between Ukraine and Russia, is very hard. It's very sad. It's very confusing. I have so many questions. I don't know who to believe. I don't know where to turn to get the answers. And I find myself, worrying and feeling overwhelmed and not sure of really what's going on and why it's going on. And, you turn to one outlet and they say one thing, and you turn to another area and they say another thing. And then you're just confused and you're angry and you're sad. And, but who are you angry at? Are you angry with the government? Are you angry with the soldiers? Are you angry with the people? And, there's all of these things that are going on, and these thoughts and emotions stay in our heads. They stay in our hearts. We don't have a great way to release that. And this past weekend, what I was finding, especially on Sunday, I was finding myself having a really hard time letting go of those thoughts and those emotions in a way that I could move forward with my day and enjoy it with my family, be a wife while my husband was home for one more day before he went back to work. And, the girls are around and they just wanted a family day. And I've been really honest in this podcast and opening up to you guys with our faith and our spirituality and where we lie or don't lie with that. And so we haven't attended church in several years for a variety of reasons. I don't need to go into all the details of that today. But the one thing that I knew I needed on Sunday was I needed to listen to a sermon, because I just knew somewhere out there was going to be a pastor that was talking about what is going on in the world right now. And I knew that there wasn't a book that I could read in that moment. There wasn't another outlet that I could have found guidance in or answers in. And so I suggested to Brad, I said, why don't we see if we can find a live church service today, and we can sit downstairs in our basement living room and get really cozy around the wood stove with the girls. They don't even have to change out of their pajamas. And we listen to a live local church sermon and just see how that is. It's something that we've never done before. And he loved the idea. We talked about doing it before and we're a little uncomfortable. We weren't really sure how that would go over for us, but it popped into my mind and I took action on it. So we pulled up one and, fast forward through this sermon. The style of church is much different than anything we've ever attended before. It's definitely more, what will be the word I'm looking for, like new age, more modern. And so we weren't really sure if we were going to like that, but the pastor started talking about hope. And I found myself crying during the sermon. And then we ended up praying, but he asked everybody if they wanted to, if they felt comfortable. We prayed for the women and children and innocent people in Ukraine. We got down on our knees and we prayed. And it was exactly what I needed in that moment. And we are not a super faith-based family by any means. We believe in our own way. We're believers in our own way. And I think that's okay. And what I needed in that moment was just to do what I could for those people. And it was just to pray. And we prayed for hope, and we prayed that God could shift the mindset and shift the mentality around the people that were making these decisions. It was so powerful. And I didn't expect that at all. I did not expect to cry. I didn't, even right now, I didn't expect that. But when you hear these things and you're so confused and you want the answers and you don't have a direction to go in, one of the last places we typically turn as a family is God and going to church and things like that. But I knew that was what we needed in that time. And I'm not trying to make this any kind of an episode of not trying to convert anybody or anything like that. I'm just sharing my story and I'm just sharing my journey from this weekend. We talk about journaling, we talk about reading books, we talk about writing, we talk about meditation, and these are all beautiful, wonderful ways for us to seek clarity, find calmness, find stillness, find peace. And none of those things were working for me. None of those things were helping me find the answer. And this pastor's sermon, what I realized in his sermon was that I wasn't seeking to understand or have the answer as to why everything was happening, but I was seeking to understand how to handle it in my own mindset and my own self. How do I push out this negativity and all of this meanness and darkness? How do I create love and peace in my own home. And I realized that was the solution, that was my answer, is that it's the love and the peace that I cultivate in my own home that I know is what will make a difference in the future. And I came to this realization not because of specific words that the pastor said, but this idea of hope. And my hope and my prayers are that the work that we do here as moms, as stay-at-home moms, is going to create these humans that don't want war, that don't want violence, that, can stand up for themselves in peaceful, confident ways. But it's not about power, and it's not about money, and it's not about control. It's about kindness and love and gratitude, and treating your neighbor with kindness, love, and gratitude. Those are the things that I'm hopeful for that we're doing in our homes. I found myself during the sermon, like I said, crying, and the kids were very confused. And it felt so good for me to do that, and to be able to do it in my own home actually was really, really good. And we talked about it as a family after we had a chance to discuss what we heard, what we learned, what we liked, what we didn't like, and we were really intentional about that. And one of the things that we learned was that the kids want to go in person. We also learned that Gracie really likes more traditional hymns, which I thought was really honest and beautiful that she admitted. And then afterwards, I still felt a little heavy, but it was time for me to go for my walk. And so, Brad told me to just take that time, and I went for a walk, and I had no intentions of, opening up Pandora's box to more emotions or anything, but I went on a walk, and I was just getting really clear with understanding the pastor's message and how I could use that in my own life and apply that in my own life, just even for that moment in the rest of that day. And I ended up finding myself crying on the way home, and just letting that out, and just letting the tears fall. And it's so many emotions that we feel. It's the emotions that we feel for the people that are in Ukraine. It's everything going on, and then everything that we're holding on to and protecting our children from, and the weight of all of that. And I let it happen. I let myself cry, and I say I'm not a big crier, and I think I've cried on this podcast like 4 or 5 times, but I'm really not a huge crier. It's just when I talk on here, the things that I'm sharing with you are some of my big moments, my emotional moments, because I want this to be, I don't want to come on here and be a ball baby and all of those things. I don't want to drop my emotions on you, but I want to share my vulnerability with you so that you know that I'm human, and we're all human, and this is okay. And this is our journey in motherhood. And this is our journey as full-time mothers. And holding on to this, it creates so many other emotions aside from just, crying and feeling emotional about the deaths that are happening in Ukraine, the violence that's happening, the combative behaviors that are happening, all of that. Aside from that, as we carry it deeply within us to protect our children, we worry about what the future is going to look like for our children. All moms do, every single mom. And if you keep going down that rabbit hole, which we end up doing that, it creates so much negativity and so much heaviness. And so what I want to leave you with today is that sometimes journaling is a great resource. And I really encourage that, to just get the brain dump, right? Get it all out, all your thoughts and emotions. Go for a walk, find calmness, find peace, find moments of aloneness of solitude, where you're completely alone, and you're not listening to a podcast that's talking about it. You're not listening to You're not listening to music, you're not listening to anything at all. Maybe you're not even listening to me. Okay. You're not even listening to this podcast. It's not a solution. It's not an answer for everything. You're just there in your thoughts, processing and thinking about what's going on, how you can handle it, whatever processing, whatever thinking about something looks like for you. We've also talked about meditation and finding that stillness and that physical, mental stillness, calming your mind. So sometimes that meditation, sometimes that stillness and that quiet still isn't giving us the answers that we're seeking. And it's still not guiding us in the direction that we need to be guided in. And we need somebody, we need something, and I'm not always going to be that solution for you. This podcast isn't always going to be that solution for you. There are books out there, there's journal prompts, there's these, but again, those are all just times when you're still stuck in your own head. Okay. And you're still stuck in that moment. And I do my best to get you out of those moments myself. But the reality is sometimes we need somebody else. And what I did personally is I seeked a pastor. We did the live church service, and it was the exact shift in perspective. It was the exact change I needed in that moment. And I know that there are several listeners, quite a few listeners out there that don't attend church. Your beliefs are different. I'm still questioning where mine lie, but I knew that I knew that there was this resource. And you guys, it's a free resource, which is incredible. And whether you believe in the Bible or not, I know there's people out there that question words and the Bible and truth and what is truth and what isn't. I mean, that takes you down a whole rabbit hole, but this is genuinely a free resource. And this pastor had some incredible stories that he shared. And they really touched me. Those stories really touched me. And I could take those stories and I could apply them to what's going on right now. And for me, that was what I needed. That was the shift in perspective I needed. And I needed it to come from somebody else other than my own mind, because my mind was failing me. It was creating fear. It was in a really dark place. And that's what we needed on Sunday. We needed a pastor to go through a sermon, to talk about these stories from the Bible and share them in a real life, real word perspective. And then I needed to pray. And I didn't need to pray for myself as much as I needed to pray for those that were making the decisions for this war. I needed to pray for the innocent men, women, and children who are victims of this war. And I needed to pray for hope. I needed to pray for the thing that I needed to pray for myself was peace in my mind and stillness in my house. But most importantly, I needed to pray for others. I needed to feel like I could do something for others. And then from there, I was able to apply that and say, what can I do? What difference can I make? You feel like your hands are tied and everybody's asking you to send money, or stand up and run for the school board, and those are the changes that we can make. And I'm not saying to not do those things, but more importantly, what we can do as mothers is raise our children to be kind, loving, wonderful people. And we can do that, especially as full-time moms. That is on you. Okay. And that is literally something you should wear with a badge of honor, that you have the ability to do that. And you have the grit and the drive and the determination to do that. So you don't have to send money if you want to. That's great. You don't have to run for a school board position if you want to. That's great. But what you can do and what you should do, and I'm telling you, you need to do, is make sure the things that you're allowing in your household as far as conversations, things they're reading, things they're watching, those are not violent. They are healthy. They are spreading kindness and positivity and love. The way you raise them is more important. And the things that you do within those four walls of your home is more important than anything you will do outside of the home. Change starts with you. Change starts with us. And that is one of the things that I was really able to grasp onto this weekend, is that the decisions that I make, the actions I make, and how I approach motherhood is the change. That is the difference. That is what I can do. I can pray. I can pray for hope. I can raise my children in the best way that I possibly can. And I can speak to you. I can give back that energy. I can uplift and empower and encourage other moms so that they can go and raise their children to be great, wonderful, kind. I don't want to say great, wonderful, kind human beings. That is the change that we need in our society right now. So I just wanted to share that story with you. And I wanted to use that story to empower you and to encourage you to know your truth, to know your worth, and to know your value in society and in our communities, because it is high, girlfriend. It is so much. You're so valuable. And the work that you're doing is so important. And I was reminded of that. I was definitely reminded of that this weekend. And I'm really grateful for this technology that we have to listen to these sermons and to listen to this in the comfort of our own home, where we feel a little more comfortable being vulnerable around our families and letting out the tears if we need to let out the tears, and pray in the ways that we want to pray, and embrace family in the way that we want to embrace family. And so I don't want this to, I hope you don't feel like I'm trying to push you in any kind of way. I just wanted to use this as like a gentle reminder that that is another option that we don't talk about on the podcast a lot, because I want this to be all inclusive. I don't want this to be a Christian based or a faith based community focused on recruitment in any kind of way other than creating awesome freaking kick-ass moms. I just want this to be a gentle reminder that that is always an option, and you can seek your local church. You can seek a faith. You can seek the Bible, and you can read those words in the Bible and apply them to your life and find some answers. But a lot of the times, the interpretation of that comes from an incredible pastor. And I'm so grateful for the pastor that we were able to listen to this weekend, because ironically, it was exactly what we needed. It was exactly what I needed. And I had my family join me in what I needed that day. And this last Mondays was all about being selfish as a stay-at-home mom. And this was one of those times that I was selfish. I needed this in my life for me to be a better human. And I brought my entire family into it. I didn't just sit downstairs by myself, but we did a selfish activity, mostly for me, that I wanted my family to be involved in. I wanted us to do that together. And it was beautiful. It was challenging with a 2-year-old, of course. Let's be really honest. She was wanting to play and run around. And so we had to navigate that, but we were able to navigate that at home. We were able to navigate bathroom breaks and water breaks and people getting up if they needed to get up. We were able to navigate that in the comfort of our home. And I was able to process that independently on my own without the fellowship side of it. And I needed that. I didn't need the fellowship. I needed myself and my thoughts. So I hope you find value in this. I hope that this gives you a place to turn to, or maybe just some encouragement as we move forward into this chaotic world. Everybody keeps predicting that the next, 6 months or so are going to continue to get crazy again. I pray that it does not, but I know, and places that we can turn to ensure that our households stay peaceful and positive within them. And that comes from us. So seek what you need to create clarity, to create peace in yourself so you can then reciprocate that on to your family, sweet mama. So thank you so much for listening to today's episode. I look forward to talking to you all again very soon.